like we're live.
Yeah, okay. Welcome everybody. Good to see each and every one of you. Welcome to episode 80 of the podcast Unlimited Wisdom with Robert Hollis. And as we get started, thank you so much for hitting the like button and sharing this podcast with everybody that you know. Also, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button right down below. Subscribe to our channel and you'll get notification that we do this every single week. And we are so glad to have you on board with us. And who is with us today? But of course, we have Robert Hollis and Matt Hollis. Gentlemen, welcome. We are so glad to have you on board today for Unlimited Wisdom, episode 80. I don't know if you want to explain that, Robert, but
sure.
I know we jumped from 46 to 80. How do we do that? Well, take a listen.
So we actually recorded a bunch of podcasts that you guys haven't seen. No, I'm just kidding.
Like
we didn't realize we thought they were
week.
uploading and going up, but we made a mistake. So there's actually
it's for a lot of people, this is the first time that they've seen us, don't know about those. So again, if you click on the YouTube list and click on podcast, you'll see all 80 of them, concluding this one. We actually had a different theory when we were first doing podcasts, and of course we probably wasn't as good as we are now. So Matt, great to see you on here, and Craig, I love and appreciate you guys so much. So I know I have a subject to talk about.
Let's go for it.
Is this would be a question for everyone that's out there watching, but also for both of you. Again, people always seem to believe that their problem is worse than everybody else's. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're talking about trauma, it's not only the know-it-all gang, but also the people that, they can't wait for you to take a pause and you're talking so they can say, you think you got it bad. Listen to my top the story.
Right.
And they're always like, hey, this happened to me. But in that thing happening right now, I know when my son, Matthew, and even Kyle, when they were younger, it was always a crack up for me. And they probably might be different now that, Matt's going to be a father soon. But when they were younger, they would always hear what the world was telling them. And when the world was telling them something, they used to always tell you that, and Craig, I know you'll crack up with this. They would say to me, hey, the news said that it's never, ever been this bad. Ever, ever, ever. And I'm like going, hey, have you done any history on the Civil War? It was worse than this before.
Oh, and you should have heard the news back then, too.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is I'm saying a statement that's probably untrue because I'm more focused, but I've never seen so many people in fear and uncertainty and doubt. And, it's so crazy how all these things in the world is I personally, at the age of 63, have never, ever, ever noticed that does every single story that is on the internet, on news, regardless of what channel, is just fear, 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 fear. Everything's fear. And I don't even remember the news being that way or the weather being that way. But whenever they're talking about the weather, it's 31 million people are going to be impacted by how awful this weather is. It's never 270 million people are having a pretty good fucking day today. And so with that, they always have to the stock market's the worst it's ever been. I don't know. Ask the people in the Depression. Ask the people in 1980. People don't realize this, but in 1980, the home interest on your loan for your home was 17%. Can I say that again? Double digit. So right now, if you don't think about that stuff, because people always want to say that it's the worst it's ever been, but it's always compared to what? So they'll even say stock market, record low day ever. No, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, that was worse than this one. So I wanted to bring it up for everybody because I thought it'd be very cool is that, if you allow all of it to get to you. Matt sent me a neat quote, neat thing today. And he's like, man, he says, it's just lie after lie after lie. And this was one of the videos that I want to do for my new series that I'm going to start as How Simple Life Is. And we've talked about it on other podcasts, is my mentor, when he first said this to me, it upset me because reality usually is upsetting. And he said, Robert, how can you tell someone's lying? And I said, how? And he said, their lips are moving. And I'll bring you guys back because I want you guys to talk about how it's affected you and even in me. But here's the thing that I love. I watched a couple of things, and Penn and Teller, had this thing on, the two people that are good at magic. And they used to have this program called Bullshit, that was the name of it. You can look up the series. And one of my favorite episodes is this one. He says, now, as you grow up in life and someone is telling you a lie, so we'll change it even if this is racist. I guess a white lie is a little lie. I don't know if you're Hispanic or Asian, if there's a different than a white lie, right? So
I've only heard white lie, so yes,
yeah,
as far as I've known.
it was just
Yeah.
a little lie. Well,
White lie comes from from the Native Americans, from my understanding, and it's because
Oh,
we would
wow,
lie to
I
them.
bet it
That makes sense.
nice,
Yeah.
Makes
nice.
sense.
We'd
So-
say out of one thing and then do the opposite. So
Good one. Better yet. And so one of the things that's very unique about this is that, as a human being, you're supposed to learn this lesson. We talked about in previous podcasts is, when you find out about Santa or when you find out about the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy, there's all these things, right? That getting a good education guarantees you prosperity and wealth. You're like, hey. So my point being is that in the episode that I talked about with Penn and Teller, he goes, here's where it really gets messed up in the world, and you shouldn't blame yourself for being upset that you got caught up in a lie. And he says, because the person that orchestrates the lie, if you have enough intuitive skills to listen to somebody and a little bell goes off and goes, this is bullshit. Even my mentor would tell me, never say the word always. Now, don't say words that like, this is the fastest growing company ever. Immediately, people go in their mind, you don't know every company in the world. So this has got to be a bullshit statement. See? So you look for things where people go, well, it was 582. Like if I said right now, that there's 375 million people that live in America, then everyone can immediately disagree with me because that's not the number. Some people would think it was higher. Some people would think it was lower. Some people would say we can't count everyone. You know what I mean? So it's very, very funny. But this whole article was about the second person, and I'm gonna say I fell into this. I fell into this many, many times. Is the person that hears a certain story or a set of figures, and they tell the next person, but they believe the person that made up the facts and figures like it's gospel, like it's the truth of the truth. So now, if I don't really know the facts, then the other problem now, when I tell somebody, like I tell Craig, then he can't decipher the bullshit. He can't decipher whether it's good or bad because he's basing it on the trust of me. And he's also basing on the passion and how much I believe in the statement. So I could 1000% believe what I'm telling him, even though it's a lie. Are you following me? So a lot of you right now going, Oh, that makes a lot of sense because I hear these people talking about it and they're so passionate and they're so loud and they're so animated. That's got to be fact. But you don't know the other last part. It's a thing called whisper down the lane. Today we call it rumors. And there's this thing that human beings tend to do, and they don't mean to, but they just add to the story. So there's this game, and you guys can look it up, but it was so funny. Ellen DeGeneres used to do it in a game show, and she would put headphones on people, and all the goal was to see how many words they could get out of a sentence that had 11 words. And you'd see it go through 4 or 5 people, and they didn't get any of the words right. So when you sit there and you could say one sentence like Jack and Jim went to a well and Jill got the other quarter from Jim and they both are happy. And the first person goes, that's not the right story. The guy was named Jack and they wasn't using anything with dollars. See what I'm saying? It's crazy when you can see a story go from one to the other to another, and it changes, the location changes, the names changes, what they were even doing changes. And this is called telephone. And so in the midst of all this craziness that I see happening in the world today, I have been personally subject by all of these things, including the one that sounds really bad. Have I ever lied? Yes, I have. Did I ever do it deliberately? Yes, I have. It's like Alcohol Anonymous. I think if people right now would be willing to admit, yeah, I've lied. And like we talked about, we'll find out the derivative or the root of the white lie, the little white lie, or whatever it is. But think about that. It could be something as simple as Terry goes, do you like this outfit? Oh my God, you look beautiful, no matter what you wear. And I'm going like, I don't know anybody that should wear that shirt. Now, some people are saying that you can stretch the truth, or they'll even put other words around it so it doesn't just sound like a lie. But isn't it sort of like, and I'm not being belittling this, but it's like AA or Alcoholics Anonymous, that the very first step that you got to do is you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And if you're a kind of person that can watch something or listen to something on the internet or TV and it changes your emotion, which changes who you are, and then immediately without you realizing it, because you're in a state of fear, you actually share it with a bunch of other people, not really knowing if that story is even true or is part of a story that's not even fucking close. Because if you're willing to admit, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Hollis, and I'm a liar. And I got caught up in some bullshit this week that I heard on the news, and I started immediately sharing it with other people, and then realizing that by the time I shared it with the third person, that I had added some stuff that I didn't really hear, that I didn't know that was true. And I have never, ever said that on a video ever. How many people do you think could sit in a circle or get on a Zoom and all of us start out by going, hey, my name's Robert Hollis and I'm a liar? I get caught up in fear and I exaggerate. And when I really feel there's injustice out there, I actually share it more to people without even checking whether or not that the fact that I'm saying is true or not. So that was a fast opening, but it really wasn't. But I just thought, because I see people right now more than ever in my life going, Robert, did you hear about this? Robert, have you heard about this? And I'm still doing my best, and I will do my best. I'm not perfect. And I just, Matt's been around me, Craig's been around me a long time, but usually the first thing that comes out of a person's mouth is I just go to myself, they have no way of proving whether that's true or not.
How do you know that?
Yep. And so I used to feel the need to correct people. And now I just go, oh, thanks. It doesn't go any further. It's too much of a distraction for me. It takes up too much of my time. And people are going like, well, debating the facts is true. Well, it would be if you knew the facts.
Mm-hmm.
So Craig and Matt, I knew this would put on a really good aspect, because it's funny. I'll say one quick other statement. It's funny how much my son Matthew loves AI and how much his younger brother doesn't. So Kyle believes that everything that's coming out of AI is just random bullshit.
It is.
And because he's looking for it. Listen, because Kyle wants to make sure that he validates his belief that AI is messed up. He's got all these examples where people have asked AI something, and an average human being could look at that and that's fucked up. That's not right. So for Kyle, until it starts constantly coming out with things that are actually not fake, then he's going like, so a person doesn't know one way or another, and they're asking a question to this AI and it spits out a lie. Woo! And that's the smartest thing in the world. So it's interesting. So you guys tell me where your heads are on this thought. Because I thought that if people just would think, man, how do you know this? Is this a fact? Why am I taking my time debating it? Why am I sharing it with other people? I think that would really help people focus on stuff that are more important.
Well, it goes down to exactly what you're saying, Robert, and even your book. How do you know that? Because if they take it, if they don't do the research, and this is where, in my opinion, and I know I've shared this before on the podcast, in my opinion, this is where taking the news organizations and literally deregulating them from the original concept back in I think it was in the 80s or something like that. I forget exactly the date and such. But because they did that and they deregulated it, and then they made it so that news companies now had to earn their way, it could make money. Well, what that did is that took away guardrails to create things like Fox News, and then eventually go into those kinds of, well, let's go to opinion as opposed to news, because news was always set as fact. Period. Yeah, end of story.
Craig, not to interrupt you, but we used to live in Atlanta, and I actually went to a meeting at CNN headquarters in Atlanta, and they were saying that Ted Turner was the first guy to think about news making money. Mm-hmm. And now that he's doing it 24 hours a day, that was the very first channel to come up with people with opinions.
Right, because they had to fill the space.
They had to fill 24 hours.
Right. Because you're talking about what? You usually got the morning newscast from your local, then you got an hour of the network, and then you had a half hour of the network in the afternoon, like from ABC, NBC, CBS. And then you had the nightly news, local or network, at 11. So you had your full days of news right there. You didn't have all of these opinions about things. And I know that there was one broadcast, left, right, and center, that PBS used to have. So you had
like Hannity and Combs on CNN. Now,
exactly.
Now you got two guys that have opposite opinions, and they just screamed at each other.
Right. But because of the deregulation, now you've got it where it's like the news companies have to make money. So what are they going to do? They're going to go what the opposite of what's going on.
Yeah.
They're going to try to attract the eyes, the people to see so that they can sell their ads. And that is when everything started to disintegrate when it came to the guardrails of, okay, ABC, NBC, CBS, Walter Cronkite to me, the consummate news anchor because he just read the news, nothing else. And if you like the way he did it, or if you like the way that the the NBC guy did it, or the ABC guy did it, then that's who you watched.
Right.
But it
That
was
was
really
trusted. Yeah.
straightforward. Okay. Now it's like, okay, how much far to the right are we going to go? How much far to the left are we going to go? Finding a central news authority right now is so difficult that and people say, well, I like the way that this sounds better
Yeah.
than this sounds. So because what you're saying, because people have like, oh, I like that, I'm going over here. Or I'm going over here. And then they start getting into the tribal part of it of,
Yeah.
well, no, wait a minute. He said this. He's wrong. I'm right because I said this and they said that because I follow them.
Do you
And it's
realize
just,
that right
oh,
now CNN has between 500 and 600,000 viewers? Isn't that scary?
oh yeah.
Because we now know that we're on a channel, we're on a YouTube channel. And so it went from like we talked Ted Turner making money. Well, then Rupert Murdoch goes, well, I'll start a 24-hour news channel and a business channel and all these things. And now we got,
Fox Business,
I mean,
Fox
I was going to say
News. You've
millions
got,
and millions of channels.
yeah, because I was going to say those guys, and then you go to CNBC, MSNBC, Breitbart. You've got one OAN, One America News, Newsmax, Bloomberg News, Reuters, and then of course you throw in the other traditionals, BBC. You did have NPR, and now NPR's got some issues going on in public broadcasting, and the Voice of America, who was supposed to be neutral and sharing voices, the news throughout the world, and now supposedly it's got somebody saying it's now have a left wing bent versus a right wing. It's not balanced anymore. It's all over the place. Who do you trust exactly?
I just AI'd this and I said, how many news channels are there? 383.
Wow. Yeah.
And we're not talking about blogs, we're not talking about
So yeah, so imagine this, right? Okay, so say let's use cigarettes because I think that's a good example. Um, if somebody decides to smoke cigarettes their entire life and dies from lung cancer, is that their fault or is that cigarettes' fault?
Well, as of this point, I would almost say it would be their fault because prior to the government acknowledging the fact that there was a danger to it, then
Yeah,
nobody
no,
knew.
any human being that smoked a cigarette knows there's danger to them. I don't need the studies to know that because I can feel it in my body.
Right.
So it's not something that we're not unaware of. It's like, oh man, that bleach that I'm cleaning with really does bother my lungs. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of course, because it's bleach. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, obviously. So I think one of the things that is really interesting about the topic you guys are talking about is it lacks any personal responsibility.
Exactly.
So it's
That
like,
that
okay,
was
the
my
news
lead
did
up
this,
to what
but
you're
this did
saying.
that, but this did this, and a hopeless us and that. That's not the reality. The reality is that people personally are responsible for where they use their time, where they put their energy, every single one of us. And so the truth of the matter is that we live in a capitalist country, and I would venture to say a capitalist world at this point, which means that the ideas that make the most money win, not the ideas that are the nicest but the
Mm-hmm.
ideas that make the most money. So if that's the overarching system that we've decided to pick as humanity, regardless, then that's the outcome. The outcome is going to be one where you have 347 news stations or whatever it may be, and that's going to come from a place of like just supply and demand.
Yeah.
Now, why is it scary that CNN has 600,000? people because I see that as like a good thing,
I
right?
do
Because they're
too.
dying off, right? Um,
Yeah.
the answer isn't because they've gotten worse at their job. The answer is that baby boomers and older generations are dying off.
Yeah,
That's exactly
That's
right.
that's the answer.
it is.
And
That's not what
so,
news is today, based on what we had just
mhm,
shared earlier in this podcast. The fact
right.
that there's been this change, and in my opinion, it's a drastic change. But that's because I grew up, and Robert, both you and I grew up with that old style of news. That is obviously not what it is today. And Matt, you get to experience, or well, we all do, but you're now seeing you don't have that other perspective like Robert and I do.
No, no, the situation is that there's been a certain group, a small group of young people that have been able to grasp opportunity, from my generation and below. But we're talking like a very, very small, insignificant amount. Like maybe Mark Zucker, you can point to somebody and say,
Sure.
okay, like just go invent Facebook. But the reality is that millennials and below have really been fucked repeatedly their entire lives. So when you talk about like the unsettled feeling or the way that the unsettledness, I think that comes from a life of never having a settled feeling ever.
Wow. More,
Mm.
there's
So,
too many
and
choices.
it's a very American thing too to go, oh, like I wish I didn't have to think about this stuff. Obviously, there's many countries around the world where you don't have a choice. You have to think about war. You have to, it's your day-to-day life,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And I think the only thing that stops that from happening is the conversations about it. The lack of conversations and the lack of standing up to it in any real meaningful way, is the reason that we're kind of in this situation we're in now. The younger generation is it when I say that they've repeatedly been fucked over, not only is that true, but I think like people are now starting to realize that a large majority, not just in the United States, but the whole world, are young people. And when I
Yeah.
say that they don't have any opportunity, and when you see the stock market and you can go, holy shit, guys, like the stock market has had records back over and over and over again. That is part of the largest transfer of wealth from the youngest generation to the oldest generation. There's no transfer back down. That's why there is no middle class in the younger generation. I'm in the process of trying to have a kid right now, and the cost to have a child in the United States is extreme. I get why my whole generation doesn't want to have and younger doesn't want to have children anymore. There's a lack of, and if you do want to do that, it's like there's no health care really for your child, or anything like that. So you have these consistent things, and then on top of it, it's now like, at least I can watch, at least I can play my video games, you guys. Like I have to work two jobs, I have to do all this shit, but at least I get to go home and play my video games. Oh, by the way, now these tariffs exist, and now you're going to pay $30 more for every single thing that you want than you had to before. Well, great. And people think that this isn't going to cause not just chaos, but violent chaos in the next couple of years. That's the difficulty, guys, is because you could say like we could be hunky dory, but I'm telling you, this younger generation is getting to a fever point that there's going to be political unrest and it's going to be violent. And it's going to be against the older generation. It's going to be against, and it's like if you're not hearing these conversations and you're not aware of these things, it's because the algorithms and stuff, you're not part of those things. But I'm telling you, the political unrest in the younger generation is hitting a very dangerous point very quickly.
So,
And
so Matt, when I started out this talking about what you believe and what you believe is true,
right.
what if what you just said right now is not fact?
Well, it's interesting because like
Because
I would
I'll tell
venture
you
I would
why.
venture to say it's just
I
human
love
beings.
I
It's
love
not
when
an
you and I
emotional thing.
no, but when
Yeah.
you and I talk about this, it's just a place that you are in your 20s and your 30s that when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you 1000% believe the world is fucking rigged against you. And it's not just your group this
Yeah,
year.
but that's the hands of the king telling you not to rise up and throw over the fucking monarchy. They're saying, no, let's keep it the way that it is. And you're going, I want the American Revolution to happen. The system isn't working anymore. It's fucked up. And you guys are going, no, it's totally fine. Stop it. Like,
No,
stop freaking
I'm
out
not
about it.
saying that. I'm
I'm not
not saying
you, but
that.
I'm saying in
But
general, that's
but
the
if
reason. I'm not
you
saying that's my opinion either.
but
That's the
but
reason why
but but
people
hear
feel
me
that
out
way.
on this one statement. Hear me out. So when the Vietnam War happened and all the young people turned against the government, including marching on the White House, they caused change.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you talk to people and you really did history and you looked at when the whole youth turned against not only the government, but even the young guys that were the same age as them coming back from the Vietnam War.
But I'm telling you right now, I get the whole, we can look back at history and go the Vietnam War. I'm telling you, we're not in Vietnam War times. I'm telling you, we're in American Revolution times. That's
But
where it is. That the
I'm
system
saying to
is no
you,
longer built.
what if just because of your age, again,
Hmm.
we're talking facts and how people get caught up and stuff. Do
Yeah.
you believe that every generation went through their, I'm out of school, I got my degree, I now told to go get a job. There isn't any fucking jobs. See, people always think that it's just their generation. And when you see
It's
it,
just data. It's not emotional, you know?
not see, there you go. I knew that I could set this up at the beginning so that people would go, no, 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 listen, motherfucker. I know the facts. I know the data. You're wrong. And I'm just telling you that when you're in your 60s, you're going to look back and Ezra's group is going to say, I'm done tired of hearing about how bad you fuckers had it.
And but wouldn't it be then, it would be my
Right.
job as his father and as the older generation to go, we need to do something about this because this keeps going the way that it goes and it's going to happen the same way it's happened in human history every time,
For how many thousands of years?
over and over again, obviously. The
Okay, so
Romans, it
what
can
if
happen to the Romans,
just,
it can happen to the British, it can happen. You can keep going back. Every single time there's a
yep,
hoarding of wealth towards the
Yeah.
older generation and the younger generation is pushed into poverty, they uprise and overthrow the older generation with violence, rinse and repeat until the younger generation then, that's why that saying exists. Soft men make hard times. That's why
right,
that saying exists. My generation and
right.
the younger one are the hard times. The baby boomers are the soft generation. So
So,
that's
so
that's
let me share
that's
with you just a different
the difference.
mentality. Okay. What if there's always this group of people within each generation that just start taking personal responsibility instead
That's
of
what I
listening
mean.
to the noise?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
mean.
So
That would be great.
they personally pluck themselves out of the noise where everything they're listening to, including music, culture, everything, is telling them you don't have a chance. You're fucked. You're done. You're done. There's always a group of people within each generation for thousands of years that went, that might be true for the masses, but that ain't fucking true for me.
Yeah,
I
Fortunate Son
I'm
by
Yeah.
taking,
yeah.
I'm not listening to that stuff. I'm unplugging from the matrix and I'm going to, so in the next 40 years, Matt, as you get older, I guarantee you you're going to see this cycle repeating. And it's just because people keep talking about the violent thing they're going to do to overthrow and change everything.
Yeah.
They just don't. They
Yeah,
don't. It's
it
sort of
never
like
would
the
happen.
dog. It's the story,
Yeah.
Matt, about the dog crying, and the guy asked him, "Why is your dog crying?" Well, he's laying on a nail, and he's like, "Why doesn't he move?" Well, because it doesn't hurt bad enough. As long as people can find a way to survive and complain instead of doing something, going into action. And so that was my biggest reason for doing
Yeah,
this,
but that
is
I know
not
I
debating
love this
whether or not
topic
it's
because like I think it's a mentality thing, and I'm not saying I'm sharing. By the way,
right.
everybody, I'm sharing the not the my perspective. I'm sharing the perspective of why a majority of people on this planet right now are my age and below. Large majority.
Got it.
So if that's the overarching feeling in the world right now, that's because my generation feels that way
Hmm.
and younger. So how do
Mhm.
you solve that problem without acknowledging that they feel that way and that they haven't had opportunity and gains in the same way? That
But if I say
process
this, I agree with you, man.
runs
But
amok, you know what I mean?
there's
So,
baby boomers right now. The majority of the baby boomers, 7,000 baby boomers dying every day in the United States. The baby boomers feel just as lost as they've ever felt in their entire lives right now.
well, yeah, because if you've been sold some form of pipe dream of humanity, of the way that
Right.
it's supposed to
The
be,
40-40-40 concept that we've brought up
yeah,
before.
and then you get on the other side of it and you don't feel that way because now the internet exists. So now it's never enough because your brain is
Thank
out
you.
of whack, right?
Yeah.
It's
So
multiple factors,
there's
but
the majority of the baby boomers fell into some other kind of lie that everyone
well,
was fucking
I don't think
selling.
the economic problems for young people are a lie, and I'm just saying the end point of that every single time in human history is overthrowing the government with violence. I'm just sharing that because that's the reality of pushing against a a bunch of I'm not going to be part of the fucking revolution because
Right.
I'm doing my
But
own thing over
when
here.
was the last
But
time one of these revolutions happened?
well, they're happening around the world right now, and they have been. So like it's just a matter of
For
pushing.
actually overthrowing the
Yeah.
government and taking over.
No,
Because
that's
I've got it.
happened. That's happened multiple times through the Middle East. That's happened multiple times through certain parts of
Africa.
Europe, Africa. Yeah, it's consistent. Every single time this happens, it's only consistent. It happens every time. It's
Right.
just a matter
We haven't
of
had
time
something this, in my opinion, we haven't had something
in our
this
lifetime.
in our lifetime, this revolutionary
Yeah, the
in a
wealth
very,
disper
very
and to act
long
like it
time.
doesn't exist and that things are hunky dory. I think at this stage is like I get not wanting to live in a negative world. That's
Right.
not what I'm saying. I'm not saying acknowledge it and live in it every single day and talk about it and stuff like that. But I'm a problem solver. Like that's what I think I am. And so when I look at the situation, I think that turning a blindness to it would be is a death throw into getting exactly what I expect it to be in it. I
Hmm.
think that's the main issue.
Couldn't
I
agree
think
with you more.
the blindness to the younger generation and to what they're dealing with, you know, the wealth disparity is 10 times worse than it was when you guys were kids and my age. So you guys could work a summer job and pay for college. Now people are living into their 30s and 40s and still haven't paid off half their college,
Right.
my
Right.
age. So that just that alone is a massive hurdle to get over, and that's a
Well, you
majority
could
of
take
the
one part
yeah.
of that data, man, and just say from the time that Craig and I went to college, how much it cost compared to what it costs today. And you're going to change the data immediately. It was the rising cost of an education, not just the cost of living. It's
Yeah,
like if the cost of
and the
college goes
requirement of an
up
education, which comes
8,000%,
yes, the
why
requirement
did
of
it go up that
education.
high?
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, when you say, I think this is just a fundamental problem, and I try to get this across. I'm trying to get this across in the nicest way that I can. That it's like the well, maybe our times were just as tough or more tough situation as how you're going to get the situation I'm talking about. The only way to get out of that situation is to acknowledge the current state of how bad things are because these kids can't go back to
Agreed.
your guys' time and
I,
feel
I
what that was like. They've only known this.
I wasn't doing
So,
comparison at all. If you remember what I
yeah.
started out with,
But
is
I'm saying
not
if you see like
for
someone in
you
front
to
of a
acknowledge.
crowd of young people, they'll like talk like Oh, well, as if it wasn't hard in our generation. But we both know how humans work, right?
Right.
Just talking about yourself and going, oh, it was hard for us, doesn't change how hard it is for them. It doesn't. And because
No,
it doesn't
No, but
change how
that's
because
hard
where
it is for
people
them,
turn the blind eye too, is the
but they
fact that,
feel a lack
okay,
of care for that, and that's where that comes
yeah,
from, you know?
but the
yeah,
point that I was trying to make, not that we're not still on it in a way, is that there's only one way. There's to me, I'll be straightforward as I can with this. Your mind is running in two spheres, and it can't do it at the same time. You're either in a place of fear or you're in a place of hope and love. Just that's it. That is just it. So if I'm in a place of fear and I don't come up with the mindset that everyone is fucking lying to me, my parents are lying to me, they didn't mean it. My clergy's lying to me, they didn't mean it. My fucking professors and the people that are educating me are fucking liars and they didn't mean it. Until you realize, just like the Matrix, that you have been running in a place where everything is making you have zero hope, zero peace, zero love, zero joy, all fucking fear. And fear causes frustration, confusion, angry, violence, fucking all that shit. And I'm just saying to people that they, because they're human beings, get to pick which fear is worse than the other fear. Well, you don't know how bad my fear is.
No, I can't
It
relate
doesn't make
because
a
I don't,
difference.
yeah,
You're
I
not
don't
in a
have those
place of
day-to-day fears. Yeah.
creativity. You're not in a place of hope. You're not in a place of imagination. You're not in a place of fuck the world. I'm going to take on the whole world. And I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere. Danny Hamlin won a race last weekend and he stood up and everyone's booing him because that's just the kind of fucking driver he is. He wins. And he stood up with a sign that is one of his pit crew held him, and it said car 11 against the world. Matt, just like you and I talking about where Apple, Steve Jobs in the middle of creation is going,
No,
it's
no
us
doubt.
against the fucking world, man. And you got to get that mentality, a fight mentality, a hope
Oh,
mentality, a win mentality,
I'm
instead of
not,
being caught
yeah.
up. Because as soon as anybody starts talking about this fear shit, you're saying don't do the compare-itis. I'm saying that everybody that watches this podcast live, if your pit of your stomach hurts and you're angry and you're pissed off and you're frustrated and you're mad, you're not running in a place that can change that. Albert Einstein said it best. The creation of your mind and your thoughts and your imagination can't change while you're in the state you're in. You got to come up with a thought pattern where, 38 and 40 years ago, I met two guys that were independently wealthy, and they didn't think of like I did about fucking anything. There's not one thing that they thought about that I joined in the way they thought. I can't afford that. You can't afford not to. The definition of a budget is making more than you can spend. They say shit like Yoda, and people go, fuck, it ain't that easy. It is that fucking easy. It is that easy. So the only person that's ever going to bring your generation or other generations out of it is if someone can look at someone their age and went, wow, that's how religions get started. That's how all
Yeah.
these things get started. Because there's one individual that goes, fuck all this shit. And
No,
it's not,
I think that that is going to happen.
yeah, but
A
it's not
million
going to be
percent.
based on violence.
it's when you can
You
get
get the
everybody.
leader. You look at Martin Luther King. That guy never talked about violence ever. He didn't stand up. I have a violence. I have. No. He was like, fucking stop listening to all the fucking chatter, all the fucking noise, everybody saying you guys are the worst that's ever had it. I went, fuck that.
Yeah, no, I know.
I want kids
The
of our
sense of
color. I want kids of our color to have just as much chance as everyone. And we talk about an economical deficit. How about a race deficit? But you got a guy within that same race that can stand up and encourages people of that same race. And some people were inspired by him, and now they're leaders today. I don't know.
We've lost the common sense to just in things in general. I mean, when you think about, you know, all, okay, just to go back to the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. Well, okay, back then,
not women.
I know,
or
but
minorities.
you look or minorities. Yeah. But even if you look at just humanity, if you just change the word, because I'm sure it meant almost the same thing. Because obviously women were around at that time.
If you wanted to, but at that time it didn't. You know what I mean?
But that was
so
just
that's the interesting thing about it is like I think like when we are talking about these topics in general, like I know that they can be emotional topics, but I find them very interesting to talk about because
I love talking about them.
Because of the fact, that there's not.
What would I, writers, fucking going to be 11.
Yeah, I know.
My grandson, it's like, what would you say to encourage? Because the one thing that I love watching, Matt, to sort of really change the feeling of this podcast is, what's very unique about being an athlete?
What?
In every athletic endeavor, listen closely. The young kids are fucking shattering every record that the old people had. And it's not by a little.
Right.
So the young kids that were 6 and 7 years old 10 years ago were inspired by the generation above, that was inspired by the generations above. Did you hear the kid? Listen to this. The kid that's going for the Olympics and figure skating is not only the only kid that can do 4 spins, 4 fucking spins before he lands, but he did 6 of them. 6 of them in his competition to win the first guy to win 3 world championships before he goes to the Olympics. How do you fucking feel if you've never done 4 spins, a quad axle, but he does 6 of them?
And we've talked about that before.
Yeah, well, let's go to the girl that just dominated Douglas, that just did, the women. But that's where I really see it, Matt. When you look at sports events right now, NASCAR, they're saying that these young kids that are stepping into NASCAR, they're going, how do you get good? Seat time. Well, they let me practice and I race at this racetrack twice a year. I get 1 practice. I get 30 laps of practice before we start the race. And the young kids are coming up and they got 31,000 hours of seat time in that race because they're in a computer simulator that actually moves. The whole thing moves. Exactly same G-forces. So how do you compete a kid where they're going, oh, you're racing at Atlanta Speedway? I think this is like my 78th time. You're 20. Yeah. One of the top drivers in Hendricks Motorsports right now is Alex Bowman. Mm-hmm. Guess when he started racing NASCAR? 5 years ago. What was he doing 5 years before that? Wait, let's go back 5 years. 2019, 2020, NASCAR was shut down. Everyone was going online in simulators. All the top drivers got into simulation driving because there's no live events.
The iRacing.
Alex Bowman kicked every one of their fucking asses on the computer game. And Ricky Hendricks hired him. He never grew up on a short track, never raced go-karts, didn't take the traditional way of doing it. And now the kid won more races than anybody last year in his fourth year in NASCAR because he started off a simulator. So one of the things that I wanted to switch is that when you talk about athletics, this bullshit's not going on.
Well,
And
no, because
athletics, they got
the
better
great, yeah,
technology,
like,
they got more facts, they understand a lot of things. The UFC fighters today
yeah.
would destroy every hero I ever had.
Yeah, back when there was like generals and wars and stuff, obviously the younger people were the ones that fought the wars. That's still the case. So it's like to a certain extent, you're always going to have that, like the younger generation is always going to be the one that's hungry. It's just a matter of whether they're fed or not, is the gist of it, right? So it's like if you starve them long enough, then they're going to start looking for food.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the issue is what I'm talking about. But that doesn't change my perspective on humanity or the way that it is. I just think that's the way that it is. I
Yeah.
think that it's a huge opportunity for me because I see the the wealth disparity that exists now. There's going to have to be a funneling of it back down. And
I thought, don't get mad at me
yeah,
for
Yeah.
saying this. I thought AI was going to destroy all that and everyone would just have the same amount of money.
that's what I mean. I mean
Okay.
that is kind of like whether it's
Are you
young
thinking
people.
directly now, Robert, or are you thinking as we
No,
continue
no.
forward?
As AI, like right now, if we took the youngest generation that's out there working, including Matt's generation, and asked them how many of them on a day-to-day basis realize that AI is going to either make them above average or they're going to suffer for the rest of their fucking lives, you're still going to find out that 90% of the people fucking are just not plugged in.
No,
It's
of course.
yeah, it's crazy. They'd rather fight something that would give them advantage than everybody else, just like the internet. But my point was that if it's going to be a, you know, the word of it, it's like everyone's got the same income. They're going to give everyone income so they can survive.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. Let's just blink our eyes and say that that's the way the world is, and that AI replaced 90, if not 80% of all the jobs out there. So even if I wanted to better myself, I couldn't do it because I don't want to learn technology. I think I'm too stupid. I'd rather be lazy and just fucking do nothing because that's humans, really. Humans are path of last least
I think if
resistance.
that was the case, then we would have never made it out of the caves. Like that. I don't think that's the case at all. I think humans hunger for creative endeavors, and I think the difficulty is that over the last, it's mostly the Industrial Revolution, but like the Industrial Revolution was started to, if it was done the correct way. And like there is no correct way, but like if it was done the correct way where it benefited, let's do another hypothetical. The
But
Industrial Revolution
Matt,
happened
I
when it
don't want to
benefited
take you
all
off
of
your. I
humanity at the
don't.
same time.
I don't want to take you off the subject of you saying how you believe with the way things are going that you could be one of the individuals that can save your generation or the younger generation.
I'm gonna explain
Okay,
to you how.
because it
Yeah,
doesn't
so
make a
like
difference what the past is. It's like
no, no,
No,
no.
we got
I'm
to
using
pick
it
up
as a
where we are
preface
and move
because
forward.
it's an example of what has been happening, and this is always a great way of explaining it to people because they don't really understand how big artificial intelligence is.
yeah, they don't
So,
care.
yeah.
But what it
So like
is,
what
and before you get started, it's understanding the past, living in the now, and preparing for the future.
yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, when I think about it truthfully, like the difficulty, I don't know. When you think of the Industrial Revolution, us inventing machines to do human tasks,
Okay.
that's the start of the Industrial Revolution. The motors, we no longer need horses. We no longer need 10 men to do this task. It just could be pulled with a truck.
Farming.
Yeah, exactly. All of these things. The initial thought of that is there will be a moment in time where humans no longer have to work and do these tasks. The reality is of the situation is that because money got involved and there's politics, this is shit that humans invented. So we did this to ourselves. Um, the Industrial Revolution with capitalism was kind of like a match made in heaven for a little while and then a match made in hell now. So, like, what ended up happening is in the beginning, it allowed anybody to start their own business. And, like, you have equalizing tools now, dude. You could get a
Yeah.
car. You don't need 10 horses now to start a farm. You could get one truck and move your goods now. So you don't
Yep.
need this huge investment. You just buy one vehicle. Now I could start a farm. You don't need all these things. Now I could myself do this. The next
Great
industrial
point.
revolution step up was computers, the internet. So that was the next flip over point where there was another large transfer where there's a whole group of people that went, things shouldn't change from the way that they are. But then there's a large group of young people that saw the internet, your guys' generation and younger, Gen X
Yeah.
mostly, that went, this is it, dude. This is the brand new thing. This is the equalizer.
The equalizer.
Imagine
Great.
I can now start a company and I don't have to file or I don't have to have a physical space to store all of my filing cabinets or all of these things. Now I can connect with other businesses and they can distribute my goods instead of me having to do it all myself. And so now this connection starts to happen and that grows. And what's the end goal of that? Well, the end goal of that industrial technological evolution is world connection, a world economy, which is where we're at right now.
Yeah.
You can't undiddly do what you did. That's where we're at. We're at that point. So if you then start to take it and go, no, we're not in a world economy. We're now in a country economy or a state economy. That's only going to hurt you long term. It's never going to benefit you because we already, like I said, opened that Pandora's box. Now, what is AI? Think of AI as the end point of the Industrial Revolution. Human beings no longer have to do anything that they don't want to do. That's the end goal of what it was dreamed up. Now, capitalism grabbed it in that process and it was utilized to make large amounts of money. But like I said, it was heaven for everybody because it was the great equalizer in these little spots. But then it was great hell because companies like Google and Amazon and all these things could utilize the same technology that was invented by them to hold the next group down, so to speak, from making things happen. How's this happen? Well, when you own all the data and you own all the things, it's kind of easy then, just like the news you guys were talking about earlier, to shut shit down. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear about this story, so it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So now you have all of these things. AI is the great equalizer. It's the downfall of the internet and the downfall of the industrial revolution. But on the other side of it, it's the great equalizer in all of these things. It really is. It's
I
the probably
totally,
arguably the
totally
largest
agree.
blessing that you could be given. But it's a blessing and it's a curse because
Because it's still in the training phase right now.
in my opinion, it's going to be used for great destruction and chaos before it will ever be used for
Exactly.
great love and prosperity. And we'll see what ends up happening on that side of it. I believe and I'm optimistic that my generation and like the generation below me, Gen Z, is the we have to deal with this shit generation. Where there's going to be wars, there's going to be chaos, figuring out how we're going to get out of a society that's so ingrained in us and get into what's next is always violent. There's never been a time in human society that it hasn't been. The only way that I think that that might not happen is if AI is quick enough to stop humans from being animalistic and going, don't take mine, I'm taking yours type shit. We just don't know how to get out of that, right? It's like such a
Yeah.
problem for us. And so that is the great equalizing event. But I also see us, if we're good enough at it, at nurturing it and giving back to it, that then it will nurture us on the other end of it. But to get to that, we have to acknowledge the shit that we're currently dealing with and the problems that exist with it. Because AI is hated by the younger generation because it is the thing that will take their job. And it's loved, in my opinion, by the
But
older generation because,
but they didn't want the job and it pays too little. And
well, be,
what a place
because
to
there's
be in.
no, yeah,
AI is
yeah,
going to take the job that I don't want because it doesn't pay me enough.
yeah. There's and I love saying this. And it feeds into exactly what you just said. The older generation sees the younger generation as disposable. They don't see them as people. They don't. They truthfully don't. And so since that's the case and there hasn't been things made in that direction, the younger generation has to have a moment in time where they get to equalize things. AI is that moment.
Yeah.
There's really not another thing like it. And that is why Elon is in control and in cahoots of all of these things. Is that this great equalizing event isn't an equalizing event like the ones in the past, like, oh, the internet exists so business wise. This is a human level equalizing event. It will equalize us in the way that capitalism changed us from monarchy, in the way that monarchy existed from different other things before it, right?
Right.
So that's where we're at right now. And I'm trying to get people to wake up to, oh, it's not this. It's actually this. You guys are getting to live in a moment in human history that is unlike anything that's existed. You can't base it off anything that's already existed,
Oh, it's yeah.
right?
Yeah, they have to
And
be
but
accepting of the
that
changes that are occurring, and even
Yes.
even we do,
Acknowledge
meaning,
them.
right.
thank you, acknowledge them
Yeah,
because
my whole thing is that, at the beginning of this, I knew it was going to turn out this way because I put a lot of thought into it. The ending part, no matter what we talk about in the beginning, Matt, was the same transformation that I've seen you go through, where now there's so much good happening in your life right now. You know, Ezra's going to be born. You're thinking, wow, I don't need to rely on anybody to take care of my wife and Ezra. That person is fucking me. That's me. And so you don't have time to be scared. You don't have time to be thinking about all this fear. The due date's the fucking due date. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden it keeps clicking down. It's like, fuck, man, I'm in April already. April, May, June. Shit, this is 60 days away. It used to be 9 months away for me.
Hmm. Yeah.
reality
Honestly, where
bites in
my
this
mind is, you
case,
guys,
or in general.
Yeah. And
I don't
so,
see. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, my whole point is I'm watching you focus on creation, focus on imagination, focusing on making things happen for you. And the more you do that, and the more you win, and the more that you see what you're doing, there's only going to be one regret and one thought that you're going to have through this whole process. Fuck, I should have started this years ago.
I couldn't. It didn't exist. So.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
The
that's
work
the,
that was done was meant for what's
yeah,
happening now. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
absolutely.
so your generation and the generation below, the only way they're going to get in the same place that you are, if anything possible, is if they just stop listening to the fucking world lying to them.
No,
Mhm.
yeah, they're looking you look at a system that's existed that doesn't serve you in any way and you go,
No way.
why keep
None.
that up?
None.
And
For people that are my age, it's easy to see, Matt, because in my 38 years of doing this, now I get to meet people my age and older. And it's always the people in their generation that think they're dealing with most of the shit. No, the lies are the lies. The fear is
Yeah.
the fear. I'm talking to people right now that are going, you know how much I have in the bank? Fucking nothing.
yeah,
I'm living,
you know
I'm
what I
living,
thought
I'm
though?
living, I'm living with my children.
I get that.
I can't get a fucking job.
Yeah,
You, you,
I and I
it,
right.
and everybody thinks that that's the baby boomers and the great generation before us. They all just have it made. They just all have it made. Who the fuck are you talking to?
But see,
There's
you're just
10%, there's 10% of that generation, my generation.
it doesn't matter if you had it made or not. It's the lack of that's the issue. Is
Right.
that the people that fought in World War II, like the generation before the baby boomers, um, like every generation has their shit that they have to go through, but there's a certain level of like hatred is what I mean
Yeah.
that just
I'll say what it
exists.
is, Matt. It's
The
fear.
vitriol.
It's fear.
Yeah,
Do you
probably
realize
for
the
sure.
baby boomers,
Well, I mean, yeah,
if you
it could
just
be the
listen,
Fox News,
if
those
if any
people. Yeah.
generation would just listen without interruption, listen, the baby boomers are the people that are went, so I'm a workaholic. I made enough money where I now have to take care of my fucking parents, and my kids can't do anything, so I got to take care of my kids. Why do you guys think that we're so fucking awesome? The fucking world that was created, my kids don't have a shot. They got degrees, they got multiple degrees. They can't find a job, so they're fucking staying with me. They're still staying with me. And then my parents, they weren't in the right generation, so they have no savings, and so they're living with me. Oh, we're the fucking great people, the baby boomers. It's like, what the fuck, man? You listen to them and they can't afford, they can't afford to do nothing because they're taking care of four fucking
Yeah.
families.
So stop
They're
voting for
taking care
people
of
that
four
keep fucking
families.
you over. And then you won't have that
Well,
problem. Stop voting
there we
for
go
people
with
that
the
keep
common
fucking you
sense
over.
and learning or taking what is told to us not for granted, because we
Yes.
do
So
that.
now we were the
Unplug from
workaholic
the shit.
generation.
Thank you.
We're
Unplug
the
from it, or just
workaholic
take it
generation.
and apply it to what is real. I mean, that's what's interesting to look at when you look at some of these posts on Facebook or on Twitter. X, fine. I still call it Twitter.
No,
But
I'm not blaming
it's
the
just,
whole generation either. I
no.
love
I'm not
baby
saying
boomers and I
that. I'm
love
just saying that.
everybody.
But you
I was
gotta
giving you a perspective
right.
I
on where it comes from. And I want
And
everybody to
it
I'll
wasn't a right
reiterate
or
that a
wrong
million
thing,
times.
Matt. It
Because
wasn't a
I'll tell
right or
you,
wrong. It
well,
wasn't a
you want to know
right or
where
wrong
my
thing.
mind is. So then we can clear it up because I just want to say this so people know.
I
When
think
there
they
was
do.
when there was wartime, right? Like World War II was happening. There were people having children, there were people still living their lives, there were people doing all these things. And one of those people that is like a big deal for me now, and it kind of came this way, and you guys already know this, but Walt Disney, right? So Walt Disney did all of the things that supposedly are impossible to do. He did something brand new in war times with a family and children, created an empire and inspired a whole nother generation to be more peaceful
Fuck.
because of his art. And
Deep.
that's
Deep.
that's that's my purpose here,
Yeah.
right? So if you wanted to know what my true purpose is, it's to go, war times are going to happen no matter what. But
Right.
I need
yeah.
to be when those people go into the tents and they're like laughing and watching something that makes them feel better, I'm the person that needs to be making those things. And I'm the person that needs to inspire those people too. It doesn't change the fact of what's going to happen or not going to happen.
Right.
And I think like when you think of I get the anger even in the baby boomer generation because everybody was fucked over by the system that was set up. It's not
Yeah.
just but the
Through
issue,
through
yeah.
fear.
Yeah, the issue lies in the hatred part and
Uh-huh.
not in
Let's come
the,
together part.
yeah, when you see your children struggling, don't say I have it worse or I had it worse or you didn't know how bad it was. Look at them with compassion and love and go, how can we fix this situation?
Right.
I don't want my children and grandchildren to suffer.
Right.
Don't look at it and go, well, it was just as hard. Why don't you just grow up and like get your shit together? It's like realize that they were raised in the world that we created for them,
Right.
raised them in, talked
Where
to them and
where
spoke
where
to
would
them
you
with.
think and saying that I
That's
agree
it.
with you, Matt. Agree with you 1000%. Would you say that the because I have never said that to you,
No, but my,
but
you know, my,
let me
yeah.
get that point across, right? So the point again for me in this whole podcast that I want to do a separate video on is it's still garbage in, garbage out. And so if I'm spending a majority of all my waking hours listening to programming, that's why they call it programming, is all I'm listening to is all this fear fucking input. Even if I'm watching reality shows, do you guys realize that all the top rated shows are about one thing? Me kicking your fucking ass.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Survivor, Big
What are you going to do
Brother,
next? Oh my God, I got to see this. I got
American
to see
Race.
this.
Every fucking live reality show is about me kicking your fucking ass.
Or living vicariously through that person who is doing that.
The whole thing of holy shit, what if I get voted out? Holy shit, what if everyone's against me? Holy shit, what if I'm the first person, the last person to get to the circle at Amazing Race? You know, what if I'm the first person that doesn't get a rose? Everything's based on this fucking word fear. Fear of missing out. I'm not in the in group. I'm not in the right clique. I'm fucking I have unique DNA. There's not another person on the world like me, but I got to compare myself against my looks. I got to compare myself against how many people's got how many followers. And all this fucking everyone is doing better than me. And then I'm going to watch reality shows to find out that everyone's fucking better than me.
Yeah.
This ingrained from the time that you're fucking can even hear programming that everything's fucking scary. Everything's bad. Everything is just you don't have a fucking shot.
How many people know the song Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones? That's exactly what it's all about.
So, man, that's why when you share your point of view, it might sound sometimes like I'm disagreeing with you. I'm not. I'm just telling people straight out that if you can tell by the way you feel every day, when you get up in the morning till the time you go to bed, you can check with yourself. And if you do not feel joy, peace, love, excitement for the future, there's people in this world right now that figured out how to disconnect from the matrix and get rid of the fear being pumped into us and competition. And I got to fucking win at all fucking costs. And I can give up on all my morals and beliefs and values to fucking win over another fucking person. If you don't find a way to get rid of you getting the input from that fear monster that makes trillions of fucking dollars, including politics. If you don't disconnect from that, you're not going to feel the right feelings that create creativity. When I say this, I know that 95% of the people in the world disagree with this next statement that I'm going to say. But I haven't seen the best days of my life yet. There's things in my future that are going to make my last 63 years look like I wasn't fucking really living. Because I'm embracing all the things that I believe humanity wants. There's this group of people that want peace, joy, love. So there's always going to be this group of people that are living in this fucking place that no one believes exists. And those fucking people are the ones that fucking create that place. There's people that I could take right now, and if I was paying for everything and could get you to quit your job and give you a year's salary, I could take you to places where you've never ever thought that you could live. And there's nothing to worry about. And there's not competition. Do you guys realize there's a thing out there called island time? Island time. because they live in a different world. Here's island time. Me and my wife fly into a private island in the Bahamas. Once the plane lands, we walk up to a shed that's open. There's no doors on it. And there's a phone there. And the phone says, call for service. Pick up the phone, person answers it, and says, we'll be there in a little bit. And Gary Cox goes, it's where we fed the pigs on a private island. And the guy goes, can you tell me when a little bit is? When we get there. We waited there for over 45 minutes and no one showed up. So then we walked to the closest city, which was a mile away. Imagine calling a cab or an Uber and they go, I haven't really thought of whether or not I want to come pick your ass up or not. And if they hang up, they're not in a worry about money. They got plenty of food. They can just blow your fucking ass off. There's no one else to call. It's called island time. And Gary warned us about it when we got there. He goes, listen, don't be an American and go, hey, where's the food? You sit down at the table, the food will come out to you. Where's the waitress? There isn't any. Guy in the kitchen comes out when he's done doing the last meal, maybe takes a smoke or whatever, and then he comes in and says, what do you guys want to eat? When you live around a group of people that have no clock and they don't give a shit about your needs, they just want to serve you, but they're going to serve you when they're ready to serve you.
Yeah,
And
I
we
feel
grow
like
up in places where everyone's waiting on you hand and foot. You know what I mean? They're there to take care of your needs. It's how they get tips. It's how they get paid. If they don't do it and they don't do it now and they don't do it fast with a smile on their face, they get fired because there's another person to get their job.
Or they
What
don't get as
do
much money as they thought that they could get because they're not turning everything over as fast as they should be.
we stayed at a place one night and she goes, we have 4 bungalows here. I said, okay. And she says, I know there's only 3 people here, 3 families. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I don't know. It's first come, first serve. So you want me to go to 3 out of the 4 bungalows and knock on the door? And if there's already luggage and stuff in there, that's not the one we're in. Yeah. I fucking don't even number their. I think they set and figured out how can we break every rule that the world has. It's not, here's the key to room 4. There's no locks on any of the rooms, the bungalows. When's dinner? When you're hungry. Well, what if the guy's not working? Then you wait.
I feel like if that's your jam, that's fine. That's definitely not the way I would want to live my life.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
The culture that we have been raised with is what is doing exactly what you're talking about. Both of you, really.
Yeah, because I've been in a number of places where all the rules and all the, again, no one's scared of losing their job if there isn't any job. And then you got to find people that are hanging around that love serving people because they love serving people.
Well, I think that you're tying it into like the answer to the universal basic income question anyway, which is human beings, I believe, will still work and will still do things past AI being capable of doing these things simply because we like doing it. And the funny thing is, and I'll leave you guys with this, but it's interesting that I don't know. I feel like everybody looks for happiness and it's like I got to keep myself even in this bubble for happiness, right? Like deflect the negativity and everything like that. But like there's I've read a few books on this and I'm not telling you that I know because I don't know and it's different for everybody. But from some of the books that I've read, like meditations and stuff, they've always talked about the fact that if you actually focus on happiness and pursue it, that you'll never accomplish it. That
Got
that's
it.
not how happiness works in life. That happiness is like a butterfly. If you chase a butterfly, you'll never catch it. But if you relax and just chill, it'll land right on your shoulder. I forget whose quote that is. It's definitely not mine, but that's something I try my best to remind myself of. That yes, I live in fear sometimes. Yes, I live in all these things, but I have very human emotions and I can be a conduit for the understanding of those emotions. As a matter of
Amen.
fact, I believe I'm not just a conduit. I believe that I can actually take those things and put them into stories and get those things across in that direction, which is a gift in my opinion.
I agree.
And and so since that's the case, I feel like similarly when I was saying Walt Disney and stuff, I think when UBI exists, you're always going to have people like Walt Disney.
You have to.
Yeah. And even if
That's the human
AI
experience.
could solve every problem we currently have and every problem we might have, it still will never solve the problem of why human beings feel this overwhelming need to always be happy.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And that we chase it in such a way and in such an individualistic way that we're willing to hurt one another for it personally. And if we could just let go of the fact that sometimes you're just not going to be fucking happy,
Right.
sometimes the world is just going to be darkness before it becomes light again. If you can just accept that that's part of the human experience, and this, in my opinion, from what I've read, can be a pretty great fucking trip. But if
And
you
one that I know you
fight
didn't.
that,
Yeah, it's the same with pain. You and I both agree with pain. I when I heard this statement, Matt, I thank you for sharing that because it's right on. You know, when people finally get you to realize that you can look at everything in your life that's painful and trauma and maybe sad and even tragic, and you look at each one of those things and you look at it that again, life was happening for me, not against me. So the world sort of, it's pretty easy if you tell someone your story and they go, "Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened to you." I've never told my childhood story and someone said, "Fuck, I bet you're happy that happened to
well, like I know.
you."
Well, here's an interesting thought because you brought that up, and I've thought about this a little bit. Um, I'll attach it to exercise. So imagine you're running and you have adrenaline or something like we've all experienced this, hopefully, right? And then you hurt something, but you don't feel it till after the adrenaline calms down. I feel like when UBI and AI takes over everything, the overwhelming human pain of having ran for so fucking long with trauma will actually be felt for the first time. And I think
Wow.
that the interesting thought about that is that you guys, that's never happened before.
Right.
Humans have always had to run. And so we used to have to run against predators. Now we had to run against one another. And at some point, we won't have to run against anybody anymore. And when that moment happens, all of the collective stopping of all of that pain and trauma, generations, is going to be sat in and had to be felt because you no longer will have to, purposefully. I think there will be a lot of entertainment that exists,
Sure.
of course.
Sure.
So, of course, people are still going to avoid this stuff. But I think that people will start talking about it more and more than they ever have.
I agree. I
Like
agree.
yes, I had this experience growing up, and I think that is the issue. I think like too with the disconnect between the older and younger generations too is I think the camaraderie and yeah, I had a fucked up upbringing, and then young person, they did too. Like they
Yeah.
got a shit hand with shit parents too. So it's like
Yeah.
we can all collectively agree that that trauma exists and how it affects us.
Right.
And I think like when that happens and there's not this financial incentive or there's these other things of like, it was financially harder when I did it. No, it was financially harder when I did it. When
Yeah.
that doesn't exist anymore, I'm really curious to see what happens. So that's my
I,
ending word for the podcast.
I love it. That's perfect. And I know we covered a lot of stuff today, and I love the conversation. I love the podcast, and I'm just you know I'm telling you that you have a choice on how you feel. People believe they don't have a choice, but I can listen to sad songs and I can change my state as fast as I can listen to encouraging songs and change my state. And same with movies and same with my environment. I can actually put myself in a place and not do things. It's a choice. And I can put myself in a state where I don't want to do fucking nothing today.
Right.
Nothing. And I can even take it a little further. And if I wanted to, like Craig talked about, I could turn on a 24-hour news channel,
And
or
sometimes we do. And it's like,
and
oh shit, why'd
and
I do that to myself
I
again?
I also can, get on a couple of feeds and scroll through some feeds and on social media and
And now
it
without
only
any
takes
of the filters on them, we're seeing all kinds of shit that we didn't
yeah,
see
and
before.
all you
Yeah.
got to do is the computer's smart enough, algorithm's smart enough that I stopped on one post and read it a little longer than the rest of them. And then all of a sudden, all I do is just see nothing but fist fights, one fist fight after another,
Yep.
after another, after another. And I'm going like, wow, like Matt said, we know that the powers to be make money from getting our eyeballs and our time. So if you just realize that programming and people that have the most money are running platforms, when I heard that Amazon, did a bid for TikTok, and I'm going like, okay, that's one of the top five, billionaires on the planet that doesn't have one of his own social networks that he can fucking play with, right? And it's just really understanding that what you're allowing, whether you're subconscious or unconscious, fucking, deading yourself with alcohol or drugs or whatever you're doing, that if you're constantly plugging into this bad programming, it's not going to be very easy to see a better outcome for yourself. So if you can sort of limit,
Yeah, balance it out at
yeah,
least.
if you can sort of limit the amount of people that are programming you to fear, because under fear is where they can get you to react.
Well, that's where the violence comes in, guys. Like when I
Bingo.
talk about there might be violence, it comes from exactly what you're sharing, Dad. That's the
Yeah.
place that
False
it comes from.
emotions appearing real.
Yeah. False education
Yeah,
appearing real.
That too.
I'm
Yeah.
seeing a large rallying of young people to be violent on social media.
Yeah.
And that's freaking me out a little bit. And that's why I shared what I shared today,
Well,
is because
yeah, and
that
I know
fire
we
is getting
could.
stoked. So it's like the same thing. It's like everything I shared with you about it being pointed at a certain direction, that's what they're doing. They're like stoking the flames in that direction.
Well, if you're upset and you're being programmed and you're constantly running in fear,
Yeah.
uh,
The algorithm will keep giving you that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a person that's willing to admit that me hanging around the wrong people, with me getting the wrong programming, and me being in a very bad state for a certain amount of time, why wouldn't I become violent?
That's you're a human being.
I'm a human being.
Yeah.
So I can tell that without a doubt, because I see it on the news, I see it everywhere, that people feel like they're pushed to a point where they don't have any alternative.
They're
They
told
really,
that.
really don't.
Yeah, they're told that. They're saying,
Yeah,
dude, you do a you brought up MLK. You do a peaceful protest, you might as well waste your time.
yeah,
That's what's being said to people, and that's why I'm worried. Is
yeah,
because anytime in human history, and this is just an inevitability, is like when you have a group of young people and it's like, okay, we're gonna peacefully protest Vietnam. It's like, dude, okay, they're at our doorsteps. We're either gonna do it or we're not gonna be here much longer.
Right.
I think that moment's coming, and it's like I'm just hopeful and optimistic that either AI gets there or, we'll probably have the Trump administration. So I got to be hopeful at least and
Well,
trust that there's
especially was it with his third term.
right.
There's
Yeah.
But
I mean,
When Trump said, I don't think that there's going to be any more, I think even talking about a third term with conversations about AGI around the corner is like I really think it will become more of a thing over the next year. This year will be the year that everybody starts using AI for all different kinds of things. And when that starts to happen, the conversation will change a little bit. I think
I
about
hope,
how we currently govern.
I have hope and belief. If any one of you believe in anything, whether you understand AI or not, I'll just have to ask you just a simple question. Is the reason that Trump and people like him get elected because people are just sick and tired of the way the status quo is, that they'd rather see it burn to the ground and start over? Well, that same group of people should also wish that AI becomes intelligent as fast as
Well,
humanly possible. They
that's the
should
funny
not
thing
be,
because
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, it's
that,
like, hey, I'll burn it to the ground for you.
But
And then
that's
it's
when
like,
a lot of these things happen. These
yeah,
changes that apparently do happen is when it gets to the point of we're almost burning ourselves to the ground, or
well, that's
something
what I
will
was gonna
happen
say, is
that
it's
we
like,
all finally decide, no, we better come together and we better stop this.
yeah,
yeah, if you're
And
looking at
usually
AI
that's
right
what's
now,
going to, yeah.
yeah, if you're looking at AI right now and you're going, maybe, I'm seeing it as, and I'm not, this is a fear statement, which is funny,
yeah,
but I'm seeing it as the great lifeline away from all of that shit.
yeah,
And if you utilize it now, it could be for your family and that type of stuff. The difficulty with it is that lifeline is, the timeline for that is small,
it is.
right?
It is.
So it really is because once it hits that kind of that big point, I think that here's a fun and interesting thought. If UBI exists, you get universal basic income. I truthfully think that it's the creative ideas that will make people noticed more than anything. So why not just like start doing that now as much as you can? Like just be
Yeah,
creative in your life, even if it's with other people. Human connection. I guess I meant to say this earlier as well, but when I said chasing happiness, another part of that is that true human happiness is in connection. It's not in anything else. So
yes,
you seeking it out in fame, you seeking out in finances or any of these personal individual feelings. Truth is, I know for a fact that the best feelings that I felt have been falling in love with my wife. And I know that the best feeling I'm ever going to feel is watching the birth of my son. So, since that, and I hear that from the parents around me and the people that have been in love around me before I was in love, right? So, those things are the human connection parts. And that's why we're doing this shit, really.
yeah, yeah,
So, I'm very optimistic that we can get as a group and as a community people back to that. So like let's get out there and do that. If we're gonna do
yeah.
something, let's do that.
And
So
that's a good plug for Craig. You can sign us off
yeah,
because
please.
yeah, yeah. The AMA, Ask Me Anything, and also the Imaginators is, if you would like to at least plug into something positive, something imaginative, something that can get you that feeling of connection and other people all trying to make the world a better place instead of the place it is. Come join us. You got questions about anything. There's two groups of people. There's one group of people that believe that there's not going to be better, and then there's people that are actually making it better.
Yeah, what's so funny
Yeah.
is even though we were talking about politics and a lot of stuff on this podcast, the Imaginators is like a group that we don't talk about any of this shit. That's a group that we
Mm.
only, it's funny, the happiness aspect, and we even brought this up on the last one. I know, Dad, you weren't feeling well, but on the last one, I was like, this is not a place for us to come like bitch and complain about the world or anything
No,
like that.
No.
This
no.
is a place to be creative and like to inspire one another in that. That's this is like place away from that. So yeah,
Yeah.
please come join us. It'll be fun. So
That'll be at
Yeah.
noon Pacific tomorrow for the AMA on Saturdays. Ask Me Anything with Robert Hollis. And then on Sundays, The Imaginators at noon Pacific, right here on the Robert Hollis YouTube channel. So we want to make sure that you guys know about that. And please join us. Gotta make a point, though, is with the Imaginators, you got to be a part of the group. And you join by going to roberthollis.com/join. It's an exclusive group. So, and we would love to have you there because the whole
Yeah.
idea is that we want to help expand your creativity. And that's why it is called Imaginators. There is a reason for that name. It may not be something, I mean, like we always say, instead of getting better and better, we like to say we're getting gooder and gooder. Why? Because it makes you think.
If Walt Disney can create an imaginary world, so can we.
absolutely. And if we had if Walt had the tools that we have right now, he'd be going crazy, dude. And
Oh, no
that's
question.
it's unfortunate that David Lynch, one of my favorite creators out there, an artist, recently passed away, because it's like he was one of those people that never looked at somebody and said you can't be an artist, and never looked at certain tools and said this isn't cinema, this isn't storytelling, this isn't. He always looked at every single one of those things, and when the digital camera came out and it was all funky and weird, he's like, I'm gonna make a whole movie with this. This is the most amazing. Imagine the things you can create now, and I want everybody to go out and do that. Like, just
Yeah.
Say that
use these
again,
tools
Matt.
now.
Say that again.
I just want
Imagine.
everybody, yeah, imagine a world
Imagine,
better. Yeah,
yeah. Think of the things that you can create and imagine the things that you can create. Because to me, that is where we go from right now to the next level
Yep.
and keep that imagination going. Because, yeah, we can wallow in fear, but we can definitely, like the science of getting rich, we can create ourselves into something new, something different, something that our imagination creates
Yeah.
for ourselves and that other people want to buy into, that they
You
want
know,
to
I
pay
the
for.
the thing that just dropped in my head, and I know we're gone, is when they one of the competitions at the end of Survivor, when they get down to the final three, final four, right?
hmm
Is is the person that won the last thing gets to pick one of the four to go with them. They get the bye. The other two have to compete against each other and how fast they can build a fire. Isn't that crazy? And so they got to build a fire big enough to burn a string and a flag flips and they get to go on, right? And if you're trying to create a fire, even if you were doing it with a magnifying glass, I seen a guy on Survivor. He said that you can put water in a Ziploc bag. And he put water in a Ziploc bag and made
Yeah.
it like a quarter of it. And then he made it into a circle and he held it in a way. And the sun rays went through that water. And then he pulled it up and focused it and started a fire with water in a Ziploc bag. And one of the things I just thought of while we're talking about this is focusing on imagination. When you're creating a fire, you're not only trying to hook a source power sun to some place that can put heat, but what are you doing while you're focusing on it? You're imagining smoke. You're imagining a flame. You're standing there, fucking just, you're just standing there going,
This
come on,
needs to
come
be an
on.
imaginator short now,
Boy,
'cause I
you
love that idea.
just all your imagination, and you don't want people talking to you. You don't want people bothering you. You're not listening to the monkeys and the birds or the waves. All your imagination is focused in one place, going smoke, fire, smoke, fire. And as soon as it starts smoking, what happens to your energy? You get fucking more excited. You know what I mean? It's just like, damn, that. But most of us are not that conscious. We say we are. And most of us are not that conscious. And so we kick back and we allow all the programming and all the noise to fucking take our joy and excitement away, our imagination away, and we just get involved in theirs. I think Matt said it one time where he goes, me and Matt were discussing, and we went, wow, there's only two groups of people. There's people that are imagining and focus on that imagination, attracting people to them that are all excited that we're not going to be cold while I'm fucking starting this fire, and we can cook some food to eat, survival. And everybody's excited while that person's doing that. And then the rest of the world is actually imagining you being a part of their imagination, their programming, their algorithm, their way of making money, their advertising. So if you're not focused with you and a group of people like the Imaginators on making some cool shit happen for all of us, then you're allowing someone else's imagination to take your attention and making you scared and making you fear and taking your hope away.
Perfect.
Nothing else.
I love you, Dad. Love you, Craig.
I love
Thank
you
guys
too,
so
Matt.
much.
Love you, Matt, Robert.
Love you,
Thank
everybody
guys
that's
so
watching.
much.
Bye for now.
You guys can follow Robert Hollis at roberthollis.com. And if you'd like to join our exclusive community, as we have shared, the Imaginators, go to roberthollis.com/join. You can also subscribe to our video channel by hitting the subscribe button down below and be part of our unlimited wisdom that we love to share. Yeah, just look for the buttons
I was
below.
going to say, I
Please
think
like
I'm on the bottom. That's why I'm pointing down.
You are
the
on the
screen.
bottom right now, Matt. Yes.
Okay. There we go.
Matt's
It's
pointing to
below
the
there.
spot right there. There's also a button to like and share this video. So please do that because it helps us to reach out to those with ears that hear and grow our community. Thank you guys so much. Matt, Robert, what an incredible podcast. The fact that we get to share this unlimited wisdom, it shows you how much wisdom is out there because it is unlimited. And that's why we call this podcast Unlimited Wisdom. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name's Craig Jackman. Please be good to yourselves. Be cash. And until next time, bye-bye. Remember, tomorrow, noon Pacific, we have Ask Me Anything. And then on Sunday, if you subscribe, the Imaginators at noon Pacific. Until then, take care and have a fantabulous day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.